Tip number 34 from the book 501 Contractor Tips. This is profit margin. I kind of went over a little bit of it with tip number 33 about risk and reward. And again, you can tie your construction risks and rewards into your profit margin. I went over that in the previous tip. Profit margin, your profit margin is another way of offsetting construction risk. So when someone asks you, wait a minute, you have a 10% profit margin here on a $300,000 job. That's going to cost me $30,000. What is this all about? Explain it to them. You know, again, this is what you need to be able to do also as a contractor. Don't just make up a number and put it in there and hope that no one's going to ask you what this number is. And the last thing in the world you're going to want to do is sit there and, I don't know. You know, you need to be able to answer these questions effectively. And, you know, I knew one guy who would get mad. If the prospective client asked him a question, he'd go, what do you mean? That's my contract. He'd get all bent out of shape. Hey, you can't act like that either. Simple, you know, hey, what is this profit margin? I'm looking at paying an extra $40,000 on this job. This is ridiculous. How can I cut this cost down? Well, you can cut the cost down by doing the job yourself. Explain it to them. Hey, this is the risk that's involved. If there is a problem, I need to have some type of compensation in there to allow for it. If there are no problems, then I should be rewarded for the fact that I didn't have any problems. And again, don't underestimate. A lot of people look at this profit as something that's a bonus to the contractor, when this isn't always going to be the case. Your profit, again, I'm not going to associate the word profit with the word risk and reward, because your profit margin is basically a cushion that will allow for unforeseen events. Let's just say that you bid the drywall section. You're building a new house and you allowed $25,000 for the drywall, and it's a fixed price contract. And it's going to cost you $27,000 for the drywall. That's $2,000 that's going to have to come from somewhere. Well, guess where it can come from if you allowed for it? It can come from the profit section. Let me read what I wrote here as the tip. Your profit margin is another way of offsetting construction risk. My profit margin is between 5 and 20%, depending upon how much risk, that's the key word here, is involved in the project. Building a home on a cliff could push my profit margin as high as 25% of the overall cost of a project. Building a house on a cliff is going to be a little more difficult than building a home on flat ground where you have plenty of land. You're on like 2 acres of land. You can put lumber and materials all over the place. That's not going to be the same if you're building a home on a beach lot where you don't have any extra room to put any materials. This all needs to be taken into consideration. Installing wood shutters around existing windows on a single-story house might only require a 5% profit margin, but something else will require a little bit more. So this is, and again, I mentioned installing shutters on a single-story home. Once you need to install shutters on a 2-story home, your profit or your risk might go up to 25% again. And again, that's a big difference, but you're going to be climbing up on a roof. If you're up on a roof and you step on a portion of the roofing materials and it breaks or falls out from underneath your feet or has moss growing on it, is slippery. These are all things you need to take into consideration. If I'm going to go up on a 2-story house and I need to stand on the roof and it's composition shingles, I might not be much risk involved, much more. But if it's tile, like a Spanish tile, and I have a chance of breaking these tiles and then needing to replace them, or breaking the tiles and then replacing them and thinking that they were replaced properly, but now I created a roof leak. And this roof leak leads to A ceiling comes through the ceiling, onto the carpeting, down to the first floor. This could be a nightmare. And these are the things you need to be aware of. The longer you're in business, the more estimates you give, the more you'll be able to see what could be a problem and what might not be a problem. So if you're a contractor starting out, you need to really pay attention. And I mean really pay attention to some of the projects you bid and the profit margin that will might increase because of specific safety issues or additional materials. You might need some scaffolding. You might need a special ladder. You might need a lift. I mean, this just goes on and on. I did a job one time where I needed the concrete truck to drive. It was a large project. It was a home on over an acre of land, and the concrete truck needed to drive through another fence, kind of like a dirt portion of the project, and then onto the homeowner's lawn. Well, I had to sign a release because he informed me that there could be a septic tank, an old septic tank, mind you. Not that the house was hooked up to a sewer, to the city sewer system. But he told me that what if this truck falls into a septic tank, you're paying for it. I had no risk. This wasn't registering in my mind when I bid the job. Now, the concrete truck had plenty of room to back up, but it would have been smarter for me to put some more money in and get a pump, some type of a concrete pump, have the concrete driver pull up use the regular driveway and pump from there instead of having them drive across the lawn and, of course, risking falling into the septic tank. So these are the things you need to familiarize yourself with. Okay, I went over on my time here. So that is the end of that. Profit, margin, risk and reward. This all ties together, and you need to have profit in your contracts. This is a must.